Good evening, Galion, and welcome to Facebook with the City of Galion. We've been trying to overcome some technical difficulties. I want to thank my friend Chris Stone for getting this up and running. The primary problem was that I came to City Hall without my keys, and so here we are tonight from the lobby of City Hall rather than my office and improvising our internet connection. But I thought it was important to go ahead and come on Facebook to talk about a couple, three projects that have taken some steps forward over the past couple of weeks, and see if there are any questions out there for those people who are still out there wanting to be informed in what's going on a live basis. Among the bigger developments over the last couple of weeks are some obvious things out on Portland Way North and some not so obvious things. Most obvious is the ongoing development and the a little more narrow, and really raised the question of when are we going to be able to add a third lane and make those kinds of safety improvements that those of us who drive on that main artery in town recognize need to happen. So we've been working the last several months putting together applications for two different pieces of funding through the Ohio Department of Transportation. One is a pool of funds that are available to improve safety locations, high accident locations, or situations where there's the growth in traffic has been leading to increased crashes. And I think in this case, we've partnered up and secured $1.1 million from that pool of funds to make a set of improvements, which include gutter and stormwater, and certainly we think most importantly the widening to a third lane from the Arby's area all the way out to Brent Road. So it's a big improvement. The other set of funds is approximately $900,000 that will come from a pool of funds that ODOT has for smaller cities. And tonight's, maybe not the night to go into the detail of where those funds come from, but it's communities like Galion that are eligible to bring in some funding that will add together, make $2 million of what could approach a $4.5 million project. So that's an accomplished. The amount of local funding will be not that much of a challenge to put together. Very confident that can happen. Perhaps the biggest issue that might be a letdown, if you will, for area residents is that the earliest these funds will be available will be in the fall of 2021. Most likely, the actual construction will be completed in 2022. So it's we can go into the detail of that, but there's a year or two of engineering, and then generally a year that will overlap with the design of the roadway for the acquiring of real estate parcels that are necessary to build this project. Most of all of the public infrastructure, the curbs, the roadway, will be within the right-of-way, but in order to construct the project, there'll be some situations where the contractor will need to put temporary pavement in order to swing the traffic from one side to the other as these three lanes are completed. As it stands now, we hope to be able to keep traffic moving in two different directions and avoid some of the detour concerns and some of the rerouting of traffic through residential neighborhoods, which was one of the downsides of the Portland Way South project that we completed now well over a year ago, almost 2 years ago. So big project in Galion. I think it will provide the safety and also the accessibility along that Portland Way corridor, which will allow for future development and continue this trend of growth along that part of the city of Galion. So big project underway. The funding's been secured, and excited about working on that over the next several years to bring it into reality here in the Galion area. So, major step forward there. Want to mention a couple things. Over the weekend, there was another major softball tournament out at Pico. That continues to be one of our parks that attracts a lot of out of town travel and tourism. And if you were at any of the local restaurants over the weekend or drove past the hotel, you saw all the evidence that you need that softball and travel and tourism are great partners and add just a little boost to our commercial economy here in town. So that's a real positive thing. Right around the corner in terms of activity in the community certainly is the Pickle Run Festival, and we still have three more Third Fridays. So I think those people who like to do things to go out as a family or as individuals are finding more and more things, even though they may be on a small scale. They're the kinds of things that are adding to the quality of life here in Galion, and happy to be a small part of those volunteer activities here at City Hall, but certainly real positive things for how the community's going. So, those are a couple of the main things going on in the community. Don't know if we have any questions yet, but if we do, we'll go ahead and jump into those.
Yeah, our first question there comes from Jeremy. And his question is, for those who live on Portland Way North and whose properties will be used to widen the road, will these owners be compensated for their loss of property that they once paid for? Also, will their property taxes reflect loss of land?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's a good question. It gets into a thing called permanent easements. The roadway was built many years ago on an easement basis, so that the state of Ohio never owned that right-of-way. So all of the property owners along the section of Portland Way that Jeremy's talking about, the highway is there based on easement. So it's interesting, but maybe to the point of the question, yes, all the property owners will be compensated. And one of the reasons that we went this route using federal funds is that there's a very well developed and frequently used process for identifying what the fair market value of any permanent takes, and also compensation for those property owners along there who will have, as I said a minute ago in the intro, temporary pavement that will be put in their front yards, if you will, and then as that phase of the project is done and traffic moves across the right-of-way, there'll be a new curb and seeding, and the property, for most purposes, won't be taking property, but will be needing to use the front yards of property owners, business owners, in order to effect the improvements. So there's, as I said a minute ago, a very well-developed federal process that ensures that property owners are given fair market value for either their inconvenience or the permanent taking of their property. So that, again, speaks to why it will take a few more years, because that federal process allows plenty of time for affected property owners to negotiate before there's any kind of filing or any proceeds in court. So I think once the plans are developed, Jeremy, it'll be pretty clear that this is a good improvement for everyone who wants to access on and off not only residential sections of this roadway, but also the commercial section. So hope that answers the question. Sometime in what I would guess late 2019, the firm that will be acquiring those real estate parcels will be contacting individual property owners, and we at City Hall will be very piped into that to make sure that those offers are adequate and fair to our residents, and we don't bog down the project because of a misunderstanding in this real estate acquisition phase.
Mayor, last time you talked about the tennis courts.
Yep.
And I think we may have missed a question because it was asked as we were going off the air.
Right.
This question, let me go back and find it real quick. This is from Penny. She
Mm-hmm.
is wondering, why is there still one set of courts standing?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple ways to ask that question. There are the 4 tennis courts. When the project started, we're going to be overlaid, mill off like you would see in a highway setting, and then putting new asphalt on top, then painting new nets, new fence. When we got under, when the contractor began to remove the top of the existing asphalt on what I would call the varsity courts, we ran into, as I said a couple weeks ago, a lot of surprises, none of them good surprises. And since then, we've been working on and have affected, I think, most of the reconstruction of the drainage and the base for that. And within the next week or two, we hope to have the original paving contract back in. That subsurface work, the base, the rebuilding of the base was accomplished with a local contractor, Crawford Construction. They're just finishing that up, and that's gone pretty well. What became apparent to everyone as we talked about the project to begin with, and then as we got into it, is that the 2 southern courts that are sometimes or frequently known as the Bill Herpick courts, their condition was not going to match up well with a total reconstruction of the varsity courts. So since we last talked on Facebook, a decision has been made to make some temporary repairs to the surface of those courts and then resurface them so that the whole complex down there is serviceable going forward, looks a lot better, and certainly pays the kind of respect to Bill Herpick, who people who know him knew him as an avid tennis player and quite a committed Galionite. I can still, in my mind's eye, see images of Bill walking around town, keeping fit in a time when walking wasn't as vogue as it is now. So we're going to try to do what's right by that gift to the city many years ago and resurface those courts and then totally rebuild the 4 main courts there. And today we're in contact with some people who are going to help us get the fence replaced. So it's kind of a summary of where we're at. As I said a few weeks ago, and it's still the case, there's been an increase in the budget, the cost of that project, but I think in talking with individual city council members that they understand that we need to do the project correctly, to do it right, so to speak, and that's what we're doing, and intend to have a finished project and ready to go for women's tennis in the fall.
It appears those are the only questions
Yeah.
we have tonight.
Well, let me talk a little bit about some things you ought to go see if you haven't been out there, haven't been out and seen them. Some nice, I think, well-needed and will be much appreciated improvements at the Splash Park at East Park. Working with our own maintenance staff and city workers, fabricated the framing for, and then local business Galion Canvas gave us a great price on putting up some sunscreens out at the Splash Park. Those people who have been out there know how hot it was the first couple of years, and so we're certainly responding and have added significantly to the amount of shade that's out there, and really neat to see where you've got skilled people working for the city, working closely with one of our local businesses and producing a really nice product that'll be out there for many years to come. So that's a real positive thing going on. I, like many other people, I think most everyone in town who has seen it are happy about, and it certainly puts a smile on the face of folks to see all those veterans flags, and I want to commend those people, as I believe I did a couple weeks ago, and the city's role in that is pretty small, but it's nice that those decorative lights along Harding Way have lend themselves to such a patriotic and and really aesthetically pleasing thing for Galion. And the number of comments I get are probably similar to the comments that viewers, listeners are getting from out-of-town friends or other Galionites about how neat it looks and what a great way it is to recognize those contributions made by Galionites, past and present, to keeping us safe and secure. So that's a great thing. Anything else?
We did get one more last-minute question regarding the Portland Way North project.
Great.
Do we know how far down and which side the sidewalks will be?
How far down, as it is scoped now, really the only required improvements as far as sidewalks is to extend on the east side of Portland Way along Cedar Gate. It stops just south of the Carter Drive intersection. So one of the requirements to receive the funds was to extend that what would be several dozen feet, install turn signals at Carter Drive. As the project scope now, and again, there are a few years before the project is actually developed, the sidewalks along Portland Way are not part of the project. And so while there'll be curbing, stormwater improvement, and widening of the pavement, as it stands now, the sidewalks, which are really on the west side that are the farthest north, they aren't, the extension of those sidewalks is not part of the project. So I'm sure that will provide feedback, both positive and negative, and we'll certainly look at that and share with anyone interested in sidewalks the incremental cost. But as of now, sidewalks are really beyond a new set of a new set of crosswalks at Carter Drive at that intersection. That's really what we've got planned, and that's what the project is currently scoped for. We're making headway on some freeze projects beyond the. If you're down in Heights Park, you'll see that the basketball court as well as the tennis courts are going under pretty significant change, and we're excited to look forward to a new set of basketball courts at Heights Park, and we're really expecting that to be completed by Pickle Run. So if you're down there, a lot of activity in Heights Park. Later this year, we'll be paving in the park and several other blocks of streets around the community. So if that takes care of everything, I certainly appreciate people watching, and thank you for your patience with the technical difficulties. And in a couple of weeks, I'll make sure I bring my keys so we can get in the office and where we're really much more set up for this. So thanks a lot, and just enjoy how well things are going in Galion, and let's all work together to make things just that much better. Good night.